from a community aspect, you're creating competent gun owners, you're creating educated gun owners, you're creating confident gun owners that actually have the ability to use their firearm when they need to. From a business perspective, we're also bringing in customers that are on a year-long agreement that are coming in every single week to utilize the range and buying ammo every week and buying targets every week and buying training every week. So on both sides of the equation, it's fundamentally different than what people do in this industry.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Pursuit of Profit podcast. Our guest this week is Zach Briley. Zach is bringing Midwest Shooting Center to franchising. Cliff, this is the first time a shooting retailer and gun range is making its way into the franchise space. We love industries that have never been in franchising. Somehow these guys figured out how to make it work. It's not an easy business. Highly complex. You have government regulation, you have safety protocols, you have noise ordinance issues. They've owned a bunch of successful corporate locations, and now they figured out how to franchise.
That's right. Yeah. No, I thought it was a very interesting episode. One, Zach is very knowledgeable. I thought he did a great job explaining his brand. I was also very impressed with the unit economics. Look, it's a huge investment.
It's not cheap.
This is not for everyone. Look, everyone wants this, and no one can afford it. So for the folks out there that have the net worth, have the liquidity, right? Or an investor group where a bunch of physicians or just gun enthusiasts are pooling money to open something like this up, I think that works. But you're looking at what investment range is 1.8 to over 3 million.
Over 3 million. Yeah, but this is also going to end up being one of those businesses where it's not just about the money. It'll be a passion play for people who are into guns and firearms. And this is just a cool way to make an investment and be a part of something that they really enjoy.
Yeah, this is worth listening to. Stay to the end. There's a lot in here. Square footage, average revenue, the labor model. I'm not sure we discussed the labor model, which I think the audience should know is 15 to 19 people to staff this business. That's one thing we did miss in this episode. But listen in, have a good time, and thank you for tuning in always.
All right, Zach. It's Zach Briley, right? Briley?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
What's your role with the company, Zach?
So I am the franchise director, so I kind of oversee everything on the franchise side of the coin, from the sales and finding new franchisees through development and then ongoing support as well. So I have a team with me that kind of works in each aspect of that, and I oversee the whole franchise side of the coin.
Is this the first shooting center to ever franchise?
Yes. Especially now, we're starting to see a couple other things pop up. And so what I like to say, just to, keep it safe, is we're the first full service retail range operation franchising. So, cause we're kind of a one-stop shop. We do everything from retail sales to, events, membership, training, gunsmithing, everything. So there's a couple guys out there that have started doing, maybe just the range or maybe just this, but we're up, the full service one-stop shop kind of thing.
It's cool. Franchising loves businesses that, for the most part, work anywhere. Restaurants, gyms, right? Things like that. We love these interesting models when new concepts are making their way into franchising. It's awesome. But this is a business. You're dealing with safety protocols, political sensitivities. You probably have some community pushback. There's government regulations. There's state-specific regulations. How are you doing this? Talk about the complexities. How are you doing this? Where can this be franchised? Where can it not be franchised? It's a complex industry.
It is. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted a franchise. So we did this for a number of years before we ever looked to franchise. We, have 7 corporate stores now. And we're going to continue building corporate stores because we believe in the model and it's scalable and repeatable. So we're going to keep doing it on our own as well as we franchise these out. But this industry is full of mom and pop shops, one guy operating from wherever. It's very rare you see someone own a second. It's even more rare you see them own a third and a fourth. Having 8 open locations, we're the second largest shooting center in the country just by having 8, so
Wow.
there's not a lot of people out there that open multiples. And it is because of your question. There's such a high degree of, compliance, a high degree of things that you have to follow, whether regulation, zoning, cost. Like, it's not cheap to open a range. And so every time someone opens one of these, they have to start from scratch. They don't share knowledge. They have to kind of figure this out on their own. And we just kind of looked at it and said, there's got to be a better way. Let's go out there and share the knowledge. And, we didn't get it 100% right the first time we did this. You go to our first store and it's got all these things that you don't see in any of our other stores because those things didn't work. And we needed to kind of scale it down and figure out the things that you wanted to put in every single location. And so now we've gotten really good at it. We've gotten really good at going in front of zoning committees or, city councils or, whatever it may be. And that's a huge part of our franchise support to these franchisees, is helping them navigate those hurdles. And, as an example, we're just broke ground on a construction in Rapid City, South Dakota. So once we start construction, it's about a 7-month process to open the doors there. When we first looked at that location, the city said, no way. And the main reason for it was there was a law in that town that said you cannot discharge a firearm within city limits. And that was the law, basically. And so because of that, no range existed in Rapid City, South Dakota. So we gave our franchisee, all the information they needed to go in front of city council and get this law changed. So we went in front of city council, got the law changed, and then went right back in front of city council and got the permitting for our range. So now not only will there be a range in town, but because of our back work, we'll be the only one in town.
So you're actually taking advantage of that barrier to entry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it gets easier every time because now we've seen these different scenarios when we go into a new market, whatever kind of roadblock is put in front of us. And a lot of times, for the record, there isn't roadblocks. Most of the time, cities are happy to have us in them because it's another business in town. And we've done it enough times to show that we're safe, that we're, fully compliant, whether it's OSHA, EPA, ATF, whatever. So most of the time they're perfectly happy to let us in town. But for the few that aren't, we've done it enough times to kind of help the franchise navigate those hurdles. So.
Excellent. Zach, we only interview founders, but you really know your stuff. You do. And I think the audience is going to realize that the more that you discuss this brand. Take us from the top though. Brand name, right? Founded where, number, you mentioned the units. Just kind of recap, level set for the audience. Who are you? What are we going to talk about today in the show?
Sure. So I guess Midwest Shooting Center originated kind of in 2016. And we have 3 founders, so to speak, and Dave Sabo, Jeff Swinford, and Samir Patel. Jeff and Dave were already in business together, and they came from the franchisee space as Anytime Fitness operators, and we're operating a number of gyms across Ohio and Pennsylvania. Jeff has always kind of been the enthusiast when it comes to the firearms industry and kind of saw a space in 2016 for specific imports that were doing really, really well in the market in an online space. So they applied for their FFL, which is their federal firearms license, which gives you the ability to sell firearms, and started operating an online-only retail front, selling some very specific imports that they thought would do very well. Very, very quickly, Jeff's wife got sick of signing for pallets of firearms at his home. So they opened a brick and mortar place in a small town in Marion, Ohio, was not named Midwest Shooting Center, kind of a white label, 2,000 square foot retail only space. And they operated out of there while continuing to do the gym thing for a number of years. Sam Patel became one of their customers. Sam's a huge gun enthusiast, huge shooter, orthopedic surgeon by day, and had been wanting to open a range for a number of years, but didn't quite, know how to navigate the hurdles to get a range open. Presented the opportunity to Jeff and Dave. The 3 of them kind of worked together, and they opened the first range in Lima, Ohio in the beginning of 2019, March of 2019. And that was kind of the catalyst from there. After that first location in 2019, we kind of worked out the kinks at that location. That location is 68,000 square feet. It is a massive facility. It's got, it's right on I-75. You can't miss it. 9 times out of 10, if somebody says, I've seen your store, they're talking about that one because it's just, huge. And it's great, but it's in a very small market, 35,000 people in that city.
You have more square footage than people.
Yeah. And so we kind of figured if we can prove the concept in this small market, what can we do in these bigger markets? So in 2021, we opened 3 more locations. We opened Fort Wayne, Indiana, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Toledo, Ohio in the fall and right into the January of 2022. And then in 2023, we opened 3 more locations in Detroit, Michigan, Dayton, Ohio, and Cincinnati, Ohio. And right around that same time we were opening those 3 is when we kind of started looking at the franchise side of the equation. So we registered for our, FDD and all that in 2023, really didn't start looking for franchisees until kind of the summer, fall of 2023. And then we opened our first franchise in September of 2024. And the rest of the franchises are currently under development. This year, our goal on the corporate side of the equation is 3 more open locations. And I'm hoping to have about 6 franchise locations open by the end of the year this year as well.
Good for you.
Zach, who's buying these things so far? Obviously, these are high net worth individuals. Give us the background of these people.
Yeah, so far, with us being an emerging brand, and while we are really well known on a national level in the industry, outside the industry, nobody has heard of us when we go to these kind of markets outside of our kind of core logistics right now. So it's been a very eclectic mix of people that we've brought on. The location that's open in Appleton, Wisconsin, which is a franchise location, he's a former sheriff and did a couple things outside of once he got out of the department and opened that store and is doing really well. Single operator out of that one. We have a group out of Montana that is a couple of lawyers that had been looking to do this on their own before they stumbled upon us. We had the group in Rapid City is a husband and wife. He's active duty military, getting ready to retire. And they're kind of shifting to this outside of his retirement. And so right now it's a lot of single operator, single owners, couple of groups that are coming through the pipeline right now. But so far we've yet to really bring somebody on that I would really describe as in the industry. Everyone that's kind of come into this franchise right now has kind of been outside the industry, and it's not necessarily what we're targeting. It's not what we're looking for, but a lot of times what ends up happening within this industry, they know better. They know better than us, I should say. And they have a very specific way of wanting to do things. And we operate fundamentally differently in this space than everybody else. And so if you're within this industry, they can't quite figure out what we're doing, and what we're doing doesn't really make sense to them. So they kind of tend to steer away from us, whereas people outside the industry understand what we're doing and seem to latch onto it a little bit better.
Interesting. Yeah. From standard, it's true. I mean, of all the ranges that I've been to after learning about your range, just from even the width of the lane, just the width alone is 2 times wider than some of the lanes that I've been in. The sound abatement that you put in place, right? 3 feet wide of batting, 15 feet long, the sound suppress, everything that you've done, air filtration. I mean, I'm looking back at some of the ranges I've been to and they're absolute crap. And they would never make an investment in the things that you're making an investment in.
And one of the biggest things with everything you just said kind of comes back to kind of our core philosophy on this is most people in this industry are catering to this industry. And so what I mean by that is they're catering to the gun guy. They're building a range. It's kind of, I always equate it from the gym guy that opens a gym because he wants to own his own gym. And then he spends his whole day lifting and can't figure out why his gym's not successful, right? Because he's not running a business. He's just lifting in the corner. It's kind of the same thing in this industry. They open a gun store because they love guns and want to talk about guns. They don't want to run a business.
It's the guy who opens a bar and sits there and drinks all day and hangs out with his friends. Exactly.
Yeah, sits at the end and can't figure out why no one else is sitting at his bar. It's because there's an obnoxious drunk at the end of the bar. That's why no one else is coming into the bar, right?
That's right.
So this industry is full of that, just like many industries. and they cater to that gun guy, and that gun guy has no brand loyalty. That gun guy is going to find the cheapest place to buy the gun he wants that day. And if you're $5 more expensive than the guy next door, he's buying from the guy next door, right? Everything we do from our build out, you're talking about, noise abatement and size and everything we do is to be welcoming and unintimidating as possible in this space. We very much want to cater to the beginner and the novice shooter. 60% of this country still doesn't own a firearm. As much as we talk about firearms, 60% of us still don't own firearms, but half of those people are open to the idea of owning a firearm. So half of that 60% are open to owning a firearm. So why don't they? Because gun stores are scary. And so we want to do as much as we can to lower that intimidation factor from, the aesthetics of the building, from the bright lights, from the less noise, from the employees actually being good human beings and welcoming and all these things. And if you manage to capture that addressable market and capture that person that has always wanted to own one, been too scared, well, now you've created a customer for life because they have brand loyalty. They become a member at your range. They sign up for training and learn to be a competent gun owner. They buy their first firearm, and now they're coming in week out, and you're creating your own repeat customer base by doing that.
You're 100% right. And who is that 60%? Largely female.
And 40% of our training clients are women.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they're the fastest growing component of this market are women wanting to defend themselves, take classes. And my wife is one of them. She just did it. We've been shooting. We go out all the time shooting. She wanted to take an official class with a firearm professional and go through the process.
What kind of class did she do?
She just did just basic gun handling, holster draw, right?
How long was the class?
Maybe just a couple of days. Yeah, not like a room to room clearing a room. No like FBI tactical, stuff like that. Just basic gun handling knowledge. Just to say, like I've gone through those basic steps. Next step would be something more, more sophisticated, where you're doing more holster draws, right? You're doing, let's say, hostage situations, walking through a room. I did something out in the woods. We had a guy in our neighborhood that bought acreage, and we did something out there. He had a car in there, and it was you're pretending that you're getting gas, right? And then you have, a little ambush. You have a perp that's coming around. They draw we went through all these exercises. That was the most fun that I've ever had with a handgun, is doing real life experiences, getting out of my car, having someone rush up to me, right, wanting to attack me. It was very cool. Shooting from a prone position, never done it in my life with a handgun. I've never shot in a prone position with a gun.
So the only reason I was asking what kind of class she took is because training is another area where the rest of the industry looks at us very strangely, because to your point of what kind of class she took, even what you described as, beyond the normal class that we do in this industry, we kind of sell people a one-day course and say, congratulations, you're a gun owner and a competent owner of a firearm now, right?
Because you fired one round, right?
And we're the only industry that does that. You would never go to like a karate class and take a 1-hour course and they're like, here's your black belt. Congratulations, you are a master of karate. But yet that's the industry standard. And so what we do, again, is fundamentally different. What we offer our customers is a year-long curriculum. And so we sign them up for a year-long straight up curriculum designed to take you from I've never touched a firearm before, day zero, all the way up to the things that you were just describing, prone, behind cover, moving behind cover, reloading, malfunctions, all these things, drawing from the holster. And it's a year-long curriculum. So from a community aspect and you're creating competent gun owners, you're creating educated gun owners, you're creating confident gun owners that actually have the ability to use their firearm when they need to. From a business perspective, we're also bringing in customers that are on a year-long agreement that are coming in every single week to utilize the range and buying ammo every week and buying targets every week and buying training every week. So on both sides of the equation, it's fundamentally different than what people do in this industry.
Zach, you mentioned in the beginning of this conversation that most gun range owners own one location. And I've noticed that too. I mean, our local gun shop is not nearly as nice as yours. This guy's buried in the back of an industrial park somewhere, really small. I always figured that was the case because they make a ton of money and you only need one. This dude is loaded. Every time I go in our gun shop, this guy's wearing another $50,000 watch. He has to have $1 million watch collection. But they don't have nearly the professionalism, the look, right? All the revenue streams that you have. So, you just talked about the training. There's this membership piece. Like, talk about all the ways that you make money in your business, because it is unique.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the reasons why it's so rare to see second operators is, or second location operators, I should say, is because if you focus on the retail side of the coin, it's very, very difficult to make, to have a very profitable business. The margins on firearms are very slim. And it's a race to the bottom, especially with the prevalence of online retailers now. Those guys are essentially buying huge bulk loss leaders. They make, a profit on one gun for every 12 that they sell, kind of thing. And so unless you're doing a tremendous amount of volume on the retail side, it's very difficult to be profitable. Your retail is always going to be your top line revenue driver. It is, but from a profitability standpoint, it's the lowest one.
Right.
And so by diminishing your reliance on retail through membership and training, you have, and events and gunsmithing and all these other things, you have these diverse revenue streams coming in. It allows you to be much more a known factor of what's coming in the door every single day, because your memberships are on agreements, your trainings are on agreements. So it's guaranteed money coming in the door, and you can forecast for that through the next, 24 months plus. But B, there's no cost of goods associated with membership or training or events. And so, aside from labor, those things are pure profit. And that allows you to build your balance sheet up much quicker, much faster, and much more reliably, so that you can go out and open the second and third and fourth one. We're completely debt free in our locations. We've never taken on financing for any of our locations. We've just cash rolled the first one into the second one, into the third one, et cetera. And the same with these next three. We're going to open these three this year. They're 100% just financed by our, balance sheet. So,
wow, that's incredible. I wasn't expecting that. You're saying that, so at corporately, you have no debt corporately on your 7 locations.
Correct.
You're rolling profits into the next location. Just keep expanding the brand. Just keep reinvesting in the brand. No debt.
Correct.
Are you buying the dirt? When we talk about this investment range, is it build out and inventory, or is this purchasing the brick and mortar?
Our item 7, our FDD, is inventory and build out and development. So it's not including real estate, but it's everything else involved in opening the doors.
Are you guys buying these buildings, or no, you're leasing the space?
On the corporate side, when we first got going, we bought almost every single one, except for one that was an acquisition, existing range that it wasn't for sale. We had to lease it from the landlord. These next 3 and 2 of them were acquisitions. 5 of them were build outs from existing buildings. So we would take over. Like Fort Wayne was a Babies R Us that we converted into a Midwest shooting center. Dayton and Cincinnati were Kroger's that we converted over to Midwest shooting centers. And, to your point earlier about proprietary building, and to Justin's point about industrial park, the way we build allows us to be in these high traffic commercial areas where we can be attached to a strip mall because there's no sound pollution. So we don't need to be in the industrial park in the outskirts of town. We can be in the heart of a community. Which again helps diminish that intimidation factor, because now I'm just right next door to Aldi's and I'm not scary anymore. But this year we are working on these 3 that we're opening this year are going to be build to suits, and we're going to build these from the ground up. And we've partnered with a REIT and a developer where the REIT's going to be the landlord, and we're going to be leasing from them for these.
What is the square footage of these places is varying in each conversation, right? What is the optimal square footage of your franchise? What are you really looking for today?
These new build to suits are going to be 13,000 square feet, and we can fit everything that we need into that when we're building it from the ground up. The ones we've built on renovations have been in like the 30 to 35,000 square foot range, because that's what was available. That's what big box is offering you out there. And so we can make it work kind of anywhere in between that, from kind of 10,000 up to 35,000. I think that sweet spot, if you were to buy existing real estate, is probably in that like 18 to 22,000 square foot range. Because it's very rare you find something in the 15,000 square foot less that can work. The dimensions just become wonky from being able to put the range in there and all that kind of stuff. So whereas building from scratch allows us to be more diligent about the space and the structure and all that, and allows us to get a little bit smaller and diligent. But I would say like 18 to 20,000 kind of sweet spot.
When I come to you as a franchisee, I appreciate that. Thank you. And that's music to my ears, because I thought you were going to say 30,000. I'm like, this is just a monster project. I don't know where you're getting that kind of space other than taking over, all failed Aldi's and failed, retailers and strip malls. I love that there's no sound pollution. If you're literally adjoining a demising wall with another retailer, they can't hear what's going on the other side. That's crazy. I mean, even a movie theater can't say that. How many times have you been in a movie theater and you hear the movie in the next room? I mean, you hear it and you feel it.
And we had to do that. And it was a learning curve. So the first, some of our locations don't have that. The first one's out in the middle of nowhere, so didn't need it. Fort Wayne is a standalone building. So it has some of our proprietary noise solutions, but like the roof has some pollution, but where it is allows that. But Toledo was our first location that we really had to be diligent about it, because not only is it attached to a strip mall, like you're literally, the range is facing into a Goodwill, but behind the store is a residential neighborhood. Like there's somebody's backyard right behind the dumpsters. Like you couldn't afford to have noise pollution.
Yeah.
So we had to figure out a way to do it. And now it's just kind of become our standard for every location we built after that.
I saw Sister Mary. All worked up on the news with that location.
So that was actually Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So there's a convent right behind the Pittsburgh store. Like there's a giant university, and so the nuns were protesting us on the corner the first day that we opened in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But one of them finally had the strength, courage, whatever you want to call it, to come up and see what we were all about. We signed her up for a training package, and we had a 90-year-old nun that was a training client with us for a year. So we had a nun coming up there and shooting with us for an entire year.
That's a great story.
I know.
The nuns love them. So kill them with kindness, get them into your world, and then they loved us.
Educate them. I mean, right? It's all about education.
People protest gun stores out of fear and not understanding what's happening.
It's always ignorance.
And
always.
There's nowhere safer in our area than the gun store. Like honestly. So, and we practice a tremendous amount of safety every step of the way. We educate our customers, about safety every step of the way. And again, diminish that intimidation factor as much as possible.
Zach, what I wanted to ask you about is this FFL, the federal firearms license. When I come to you as a prospective franchisee, I have nothing. I have no background, right? All I have is I own a gun. I legally own a gun, period. Am I getting this license? Am I somehow piggybacking off of you? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, but it's your own license. In fact, we do a separate FFL for every location that we open, because it needs to be a physical address that it's tied to. The ATF wants to know what address the firearms are shipping to and where to go, that kind of stuff. The reality is an FFL is not super scary or hard to obtain. If you can legally own a firearm, you can legally obtain a federal firearms license to sell firearms. It's just, it's not really any different than applying for a business license. There's just a couple extra steps and an extra agency that you have to go through, but it's basically just some paperwork and an application to the ATF. They'll come out, have an interview, look at your location, et cetera, and then go from there.
Okay. All right. So we have the square footage. We have the investment range. That includes this beautiful inventory of guns, correct? That you're seeing in this retail area. We talked about the lanes and all the things that you're doing in there, which is just incredible. I think we have one here in Lauderdale that was using. Do you use Caliber, the advanced shooting?
We do.
So you do? Okay. Talk to us about that, because I think that's very impressive.
We use a couple of different key vendors out of the development phase. There's, multiple guys out there from an HVAC perspective and a range build out perspective that are available to build these things. And those are two areas that are required vendors for us when you come in as a franchisee, because, they've built every single one of our ranges. We trust these guys. Their customer service after they open is phenomenal. And they make quality products. As an example, we one of our acquisitions did not have the HVAC in it that we used. And we quickly found out what was there was not adequate and ended up costing us $500,000 to fix it. So, again, working with us as a franchisee allows you to pick the right vendors from day one instead of making costly mistakes that we have in the past. But we use Range Systems is the company that we use to build out our ranges, and they partner with Caliber, which is the target carrier system that they use. And basically, we want to have top of the line stuff for our customers. So, our ranges are equipped with touch screens at every lane that allows you to take your target out to whatever distance you want, preset or manually, and bring it back home, immediately, lighted, well ventilated. The HVAC system is phenomenal. From a franchisee perspective, it's one of the biggest costs that's going to be on your bottom line from a development perspective. But those HVAC systems are necessary to create the right environment to shoot indoors, because otherwise the lead buildup and the smoke and all that becomes just unshootable. So our HVAC system recirculates that entire room every 7 seconds, pushes everything down range, so you're not standing in smoke or lead. It makes it safe for our customers, our employees, everybody. So the key with a lot of this stuff is working with the right vendors that are high quality and that are going to do right by you.
That's great. Justin, have you used the shooting target systems where they'll go out 10 feet, they'll spin around, they'll stop, right? So you're doing motion target, shot placement tracking. They do all this stuff, whether you're doing drills for tactical scenarios or self-defense, like when it spins, pretend they have a hostage and you got to do a headshot. It's very cool.
It's very cool.
I've done it a couple of times down here in because it's only like one place that I'm aware of down here in like Lauderdale, and they did it. It was very cool. And then another place opened up, where that Extreme Sports is off of I-95. Yeah. That's right. They opened up a founders club for shooters, and they brought that system in there. Naturally, no one ever teaches you how to do it, which is what I also like about your brand. There's videos. They tell you how to use the system, what the system can do, so you could orient yourself with these shooting target systems before you go there. You don't want to go there and learn it. You want to orient yourself with it before you're hearing 45s and 44 calibers going off everywhere. It's just a concussive environment. You want to figure this stuff out. I love those systems. I think it makes indoor shooting way more fun, because I happen to prefer outdoor shooting because I found it boring, just, doing certain things. But when you have those target systems, I think it's a lot of fun.
It sounds like it's a way of gamifying an indoor shooting range.
It makes it competitive. My son and I were competing against each other because it does shot placement tracking. So it's like, look, your grouping's off, right? You had a stray. It does all these things. So he and I were competing against each other on some of those games. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It sounds like the secret weapon, no pun intended, for Midwest is the education. Gun ranges are intimidating. They are, right? Just going to a regular gun range, and then there's these new technologies and systems. It's intimidating. So I like the way they're kind of creating a model built for first-time shooters or gun owners. It's an inviting atmosphere. Teach them how to shoot and get comfortable. I love that. I think that's important.
I agree.
And we very much do cater to that beginner, but the thing is like the enthusiast is still coming into our shop. It's not like we don't have that guy. But that guy's coming into our store because we have guns. And so our secret weapon with him is to be cheaper than every other store in town. That's how we capture that guy. But for the rest of the community, we want to get those people in that have never gone to those other stores before. And so you want to capture both sides of the market share, so to speak.
These places, I'm looking at pictures on your website. The retail space is big, and then you have in the back a pistol range and a rifle range for a longer range. There's space for all that in a 13,000 square foot space.
So we do 20 lanes typically as a build out, 2 bays of 10, and they're going to be 25 yards. So while you can shoot a rifle on them, there you are limited to the distance that you can go.
Okay.
And for that new shooter that's not really ever held an AR before, they can still have a tremendous amount of fun. For that experienced shooter that needs to get a 0 before hunting season, you can do that on a 25-yard range. There are ranges out there indoor that do 100-yard ranges or 50-yard ranges. Our first location has 4 lanes of 100 yards. We had the space and we did it. And it's one of those examples of something that we'll never do again in any of our locations. And we don't want our franchises doing, because we found the juice was not worth the squeeze on a 100-yard range. The cost to build it, you're never going to see a return on it. The maintenance on it is just extraordinary. If you think people can't shoot on a 25-yard range and break things on it, imagine what they do on a 100-yard range.
Yeah.
It just becomes insane. So it's a good example of just, one of those, not necessarily mistakes, but learning things we did on our first
these are
location
benefits of buying a franchise from a franchisor who's owned and operated multiple locations of their own. They've tried different things, made some mistakes, so the franchisees won't have to.
100%.
Yeah, just for the audience, I agree with everything. I love the conversation. I love what you're building over there. I find it interesting. Who would have known that a gun range would take over a Babies R Us or something like that? You think about all these big box retailers that have failed, and I always ask myself, who is taking that space? This is a massive space. Right. Yeah. Well, those exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, I'm just a carryover tenant. I only want to use this space to sell Halloween costumes, and then I'm out of here.
Service takes over retail. I mean, it's what happened with franchising.
Yeah, and there was a couple that we purchased that were vacant for like 3+ years before we came in, because just the size, just nobody wanted them, but they were in great locations. But they needed to find that right tenant.
This is a $30 billion business just selling guns. $30 billion in just this country alone. It was interesting.
It's way up. It's higher than that now. I think 2023, the number was like 90 billion.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's military though. That's military, law enforcement. That's going to be everybody, right?
No, that's just customer facing consumer retail. Yeah.
I mean, there was a huge spike during the COVID years.
Yeah, we saw 15 million new gun owners between 2020 and 2021. It's been an insane jump since COVID. Justin's absolutely correct.
33% of them were female, Zach.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, they said there were more background checks done during COVID than ever in history.
Yeah, and every year we're seeing more 4473 checks. 4473 is the paperwork you have to do to purchase a firearm. Like 2021, I think, was the largest 4473s we've ever seen come through. And but even 2022 through now, they're all higher than pre-COVID every single year.
And a lot of the laws have changed. As much as the left has tried to take the gun away, the red states are like, you know what? Every time you do that, now we're just going to allow open carry. I can't believe how many open carry states there are in this country. I was shocked.
And they're growing every year, but the reality is, even the states that have more strict laws, we're perfectly fine going into those states, because we are not doing any of, we're fully compliant above and beyond the base level compliance in all of our locations. So because of that, the ATF has no problem with us, because we do things correctly. If they want to put a law in place, okay, it doesn't hurt me when I'm doing things the right way as a major retailer. It only hurts the guy selling guns out of his basement. That's who some of those stricter laws have a problem with. And, we teach our franchisees how to navigate these waters so that they have no issues with any of these agencies. And so it really allows us to operate in places that a lot of people are too scared to go to. I have no problem with blue cities. Almost every market we go to is a major metro that has people from every walk of life. And, Democrats shoot guns too. So if they want to buy a gun, we're there for them.
Well, they have the highest crime rates. So people do want to figure out maybe how to hedge that. So for sure. No, I think it's great. I saw, do you know the revenue on the shooting ranges? I tried to take the market cap of just now a shooting range. I was coming up at 570 million. Do you have any stats
I don't have
on
it as
shooting
far as
range?
the industry whole. No,
Just curious.
sorry.
It says there's around 8,600 shooting ranges in the United States.
That sounds about right.
That's insane.
But
we are the most armed people in the world. According to ChatGPT, we're the most armed people in the world.
Definitely. Yeah, there's only I think there's only one other country in the world that owning a firearm is a constitutional right, and it's Guatemala. I think we're the only two countries in the world where it's a constitutional right.
Let's talk about the item 19. It says you have one for 2024. What's that looking like, and how did you create it? I'm sure it's corporate stores.
It is corporate stores. Like I said, we opened the first franchise September of 2024. So our 2024 FDD has the the 4 corporate locations that were open for entirety of 2023 on it. And it has their gross revenue, their gross profit, a couple major expenses, as well as their net operating income for all 4 of those locations. So,
What are we looking at?
yeah, we broke it down by location. I can give you the ranges off the top of my head. I don't have it pulled up, but gross revenue anywhere from 3.3 to 4.9 million. And then NOI in between 500K and 1.1 million for a net operating income. So,
Wow.
That I'm surprised to hear. So let's say you're doing 5 million. I'm going to assume the location doing 5 million netted the million.
correct.
Okay. You're talking about 20%. A 20% net on, let's be fair, a gun is a commodity and the low cost provider wins in that game, which means it's a razor thin margin. Like, what's the net margin on a gun? Is it, can you make 10% net on a gun?
You can, and you know, I think we set our margins, and we do set lower than your average guy, but I think we set at 14% for handguns. So
Really? Okay. So
Yeah.
this shows you that you're really inflating your net. Kudos to you, because you're saying, no, let's do higher margin stuff. The membership itself, the gym model overlaid in a gun range.
The services offset the
That's
margins on the guns. Yeah.
Wow,
You have
that's
to.
impressive.
You have to. Like a really good example is, you know, we purchased a location in 2023 that had been open for 20 years, and they were in this industry a really successful operator. Like, they were known as a good operator in their space. There was years where he was doing, you know, 10 million in revenue. But our Toledo location in a year was more profitable than he was in like a decade, because like the margins are so razor thin that it doesn't matter how many guns you're pumping out the door.
That's
if you're
right.
making 10 points on them, you know? So again, by driving that revenue and membership and training, it allows us to not rely on that gun. Our CEO always says guns don't matter. And like, people look at him very weird when he says that, but obviously guns matter. It's what gets in the door. But from a driving your business perspective, guns don't matter.
I'm wondering though, Zach, do you need such a big retail space? Like, do you need to sell such a large selection of guns, or is it like people buy mainly Glocks, right, as handguns? You know, whatever rifles are most popular, right? ARs. Let's have a small selection of those.
So you don't need as big of a retail footprint as we have in some of the stores you see on our website. Are these build-to-suites that we're making, the biggest area that we've shrunk is our retail space. Now we're going to keep the same cost of inventory in that space. It's just going to look way more full to the gills. The reason our retail spaces look so big is because we had the space to do that. Right. But it's not necessary.
You got a deal on a big box retailer, and it's like, just take it.
But that being said, the amount of inventory we're going to be carrying in those stores is going to be the same cost, just in a slower footprint. And you do need, there's so many accessories, there's so many different categories that fit within this space, whether it's ammo, bags, cleaning kits, all these things that you need all of those things.
Optics. The optics business is huge.
Ears.
But
costs more than the gun.
We run very, very lean compared to a lot of traditional retailers. Like when you actually start like digging into how much we carry on our floor versus some of the other guys, like we run very, very lean. I have almost no back stock in my back of house. And it's because we're very, really, very diligent on our inventory process, our purchasing, our auto ordering, all those kind of things. We teach our franchisees how to run lean on that kind of stuff and just inventory turn constantly. And then we also don't require our franchisees to carry anything we carry in our corporate store. So we'll give them our full corporate store set of this is what is on my retail floor, but we don't require them to carry any of it. To your point, 80% of a store is probably going to be the same stuff, whether you're in Maine or Phoenix, right? A Glock is going to sell no matter where you are.
Glock 19.
Glock 19.
Yep.
But there is, 20% of the industry is like, maybe there's a guy in Miami that sells a really specific AR that he custom builds. That's awesome. And everybody in Miami knows that guy, but no one's heard of him in Washington State. So nobody's going to buy him in Washington State.
Yes.
So, but we allow our franchisees to carry whatever they want.
I bet you have no problem staffing these things. And I bet the employees are great, enthusiastic.
Oh yeah.
Love learning about this. Yeah, exactly. Passionate.
We have no shortage of applications in any of our locations. That's for sure. We always say we don't hire gun people, we hire good people. And so finding the right people to staff our stores can be difficult sometimes because we don't necessarily want the guys that you traditionally find in a gun store. Some of those guys are great, other guys are not. And so we want to find the good people that want to talk about membership, want to talk about training, don't want to just sit on the floor and talk about, the nuances of a Glock 19 versus a 17 all day. Like, we don't reward our associates for selling a gun, but you better believe they get commissions for selling a membership. So we prioritize the performance of the things that are important to us. And so if the employee that's applying doesn't want to sell, then they're probably not the right employee for us.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, this is very cool. There's a lot to like here. You want to educate the audience that an AR doesn't stand for assault rifle, so we could start to unwind all that crap?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. It stands for Armalite, which is the original manufacturer of the rifle. But yeah, assault rifle is a whole nother can of worms. We could spend another 2-hour podcast talking about the different nuances of that. I don't have my coffee mug. Actually, it's in the kitchen, but it has the history of the assault rifle and has every different. Yeah, it's actually what I was drinking this morning. So that's funny you bring that up. So
it is. It's like you hear these things in the news and you're like, that's what it means. It means automatic rifle. It means assault rifle. No, it doesn't mean either of those things. And these are being told to us by people with suits and ties in the federal government. And they don't even know. That's what's even more frightening. They talk about carbon. They talk about guns. They never know what they're talking about. How much carbon's in the air? Oh, 8. No, it's 0.04. They never know what they're talking about.
It's funny. Even guys that apply that say they're gun guys, you start getting into the industry and start I didn't know anything about guns compared to some of my hourly employees that work on these floors. Like, these guys live and breathe the product, right? And they just know everything about it. And I come from a gun background. Like, I was in the military for 10 years. I shot competitively for a number of years. Like, I know my firearms, but then you get into the industry and you don't know anything about firearms compared to some of these guys out there that just know everything there is to know, like any industry, I'm sure. But
crazy. First gun was invented in 13th century China. I didn't know that. I had to look up the longest sniper. Does anyone know the longest sniper kill in history?
It just got broken last year by a Ukrainian team.
Oh, was it? They broke the Canadians' record?
So the Canadian record that you're looking at probably just got broken by a Ukrainian sniper last year by, I think it was 5,900 meters, something like that.
5,900 meters?
Yeah. And it's recorded, the kill is recorded too. It's an insane shot. It was a 9-second travel time for the round.
Wait a second. That's over 3 miles, right?
3,500. I had it flip-flop dyslexic wise. 3,500 meter.
Okay. So the Canadian was 3,540 meters.
Yep. And this one was...
his bullet took 10 seconds to reach its target. Can you imagine pulling the trigger and waiting 10 full seconds for impact?
3,800 meters is the Ukrainian kill. 3,800. So broke it.
Wow. All right. So that's the new record. And again, you could say it, but the Canadians recorded it, and you're saying the Ukrainians recorded
Ukrainian
it.
One too. Yeah.
Justin, these guys.
There has to be a time, like in the cartoons, where the bullet just stops and it drops.
It's crazy,
that distance is insane.
To shoot something that far, the apex, the curvature of that round is so high that when you actually see impact, it's coming in dang near vertically into impact. That's how high the bullet had to travel in order to hit.
These guys are calculating. I had to look this up because I'm like, wait, 10 seconds? A lot can happen in 10 seconds. They have to calculate wind, gravity, and even the Coriolis effect. In 10 seconds, the Earth is moving. You're not in the same position that you were in 10 seconds ago. I mean, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's some serious math. Those guys are remarkable. Absolutely remarkable.
Takes a team.
Right, exactly. That's impressive. I'd like to learn about that shot. Anyway, this was really helpful. I was asking my son the other day, I go, how many bullet calibers are made in the United States? He's like, I have no idea. He had no idea. The 9mm was not our bullet. There's a lot of things.
How many were originated?
Yeah, it was like what did we create? What bullets did we create? And of course, he thought the 9mm was ours. I'm like, no, it's from Germany. Because I like a 45 ACP. I have a 1911, and I like that bullet. that caliber specifically because it was made in the United States. I wanted, but then most of my guns now are all 9mm. Everything now seems to be. Do you have that in a 9?
Standard.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like I wish we had, the 380s too small. The 9mm seems to be just right.
It honestly is for most people's like usage. The 9mm is just the right velocity, the right size, the right stopping power, the right price point. Like all of those things are factors that make it the like standard round. Every once in a while, somebody will come out with something new that is, and like it used to be the biggest trade-off to 9mm was the capacity issue. Like you could only fit so many rounds into a magazine on a 9mm, but now these manufacturers
double
are coming
stack
out with,
them. Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. They can get 9mm into sizes that 380 used to do, where you can be carrying 20 rounds completely concealed, like in a super small footprint. So there's no reason to go small like a 380 anymore because you can carry the same capacity in a 9mm. So and that's like in the last 10 years or so that's really become like a huge steep innovation. Same with like red dot optics have become the standard now as well. People used to never carry red dots on their handguns because the manufacturing of them just wasn't to a standard where it would hold true very long. Like you would fire and it basically wouldn't be accurate anymore. Now red dots have become so good. These manufacturers are getting so good at manufacturing these that it's becoming the standard. Like even like law enforcement departments now are starting to switch to red dot optics and be carrying them on like standard issue. So it's very interesting to see like the growth in the industry and like the changes that have become standardized over the last 10 years or so.
This was very interesting. Justin, what else do you have?
I think it's cool. I mean, you're not going to see, well, it sounds like he does have some just families buying these things. I think it's going to be mainly investor groups. It's a big investment, 1.8 to 3.5 million. But the revenue's there, the margins are there. You don't see a lot of gun shops closing, failing.
Right.
Highly fragmented industry. This is the first brand to do it. All the systems and processes are there.
Royalties low too. They did it. I mean, considering that a lot of revenue is coming from the razor thin margin stuff, they lowered the royalty rate to 4%, which I thought was a good move. I think it was well thought out.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, again, like we're so novel in the franchising space that it does take quite a bit of convincing for people to understand what we're doing. And so we wanted to make things, not super prohibitive to get into. And ultimately we're doing this, like, I think to me, the correct franchise relationship is one that is a symbiotic relationship where like I'm only successful if my franchisees are successful. So if they're not making money, I'm not making money. And like the franchisee should not be my customer. Like that is not my goal. We're going to continue opening corporate locations to make money. Franchisees are going to be making money. So we're making that 4% off of that. But if they're not making money, we aren't. Mm-hmm. And so we want to make it a relationship where we are a support element for our business owners and not make them our customers. That was never our goal with the franchising side of the equation.
Zach, are you seeing any SBA to Justin's point, or is this really just cash? Or no, people are doing debt.
I think every single one of them has done an SBA so far.
Okay. I just want to make sure there's no issue there. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. This was really great. I think you did a great job. You're an excellent representation of your brand. Are you working leads? If we refer clients, are you working them?
I am. So,
great.
We had a sales person on the equation who, found something else that worked better with their schedule. And I haven't yet brought a new salesperson onto the board. So right now it's me. So, new sales side is new for me. I come from an operational and management background. That was my key. In fact, I didn't come from a franchise background. I came from Midwest Shooting Center in operations. And originally we had hired somebody from the franchise world to run the franchising side of the coin. And they lasted about a week before we realized it's much more important for someone that knows Midwest Shooting Center, knows our operation, knows our culture. You can teach me the franchising stuff. I can't necessarily teach someone that knows franchising Midwest Shooting Center. So I came over to kind of help run the franchising side of the equation.
Nice.
If anyone out there in Fran Dev is looking for a gig, reach out to Zach.
There you go.
Yeah, this is way better than home care. Good stuff, Zach. Great meeting you. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
Excellent. Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit subscribe for more great content. And if you're thinking about investing in a franchise, whether it's the one you just heard about or another opportunity, reach out to us at cliffn@francity.com. That's cliffn@FRANOCITY.com. We look forward to working with you.